booktube, welcome back to my channel and welcome to A Closer Book. This is the video where I talk about 3 of my most recent reads. The first book I'm going to talk about today is Seth Godin's Purple Cow. This is from the business/self-help section, but I feel like this is applicable to just about anyone. Seth Godin says that the key to success is that you stand out. So what are some of the things that you do to differentiate yourself from all the people around you, all your competitors, all the people who are just kind of making noise around you? How do you get your message across so that people hear what you have to say and can respond? That, he says, is the key to succeeding at just about anything that you want to do. Whether it's business, whether you're looking for a job and you need to submit your resume, whether you're trying to pitch an idea to someone, the key to getting your message heard is that you're able to get that person's attention. The purple cow idea, of course, is based on the fact that if you were driving down a country road and you saw a farm of just regular monochromatic cows, maybe you take a picture if you lived in the city and you didn't see animals very often, but after a while you'd be pretty bored by the same old picture. But if you drove down the road and then you saw a purple cow, you would notice that purple cow. So even though there are lots of other cows around, what is it about this cow that makes it special? You would focus on that, maybe take a picture, you tell everyone that you knew that you'd seen a purple cow. So while the idea is applicable for business plans, I feel like it's a lesson that you can use in just about any aspect of your life. So this is one of the books that I really like to read. I love business books. I used to read a lot of business books. This year so far I haven't been reading a lot of nonfiction, and I do want to change that. So a friend of mine gave me this book a few weeks ago and I wanted to read it as soon as possible, and I did. It's a pretty small book, so if you're in the market for some business self-help books, I recommend this one. Next, I read I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy. This is a young adult novel, and it follows twins Noah and Jude, who have grown up pretty close, like most twins do, I suppose. But as they've become teenagers, they're starting to struggle in their relationships with each other. They both feel like their parents have chosen one favorite child, so they're both aching for the love and acceptance of that parent and taking out the frustration on the other child that the parent has chosen. So Noah and Jude are both artistic and their mother is an artist, but Jude feels like her mother has chosen Noah. So as she's trying to get more of her mother's attention, she also resents Noah for just being the kid that the mother lavishes the attention and acceptance on. Noah feels the same way. He feels like his dad doesn't understand or accept who he is, and so he resents the easy relationship that his sister has with their dad. So this, I guess, is just regular coming of age kind of material for a young adult novel. But what I really enjoyed about the book, so the kids, like I said, they're artistic, and so there are a lot of artsy descriptions in this book. Noah, he thinks in paintings, and so the descriptions and the quotes, I felt a lot of them were just absolutely lovely. The book is also told in alternating perspectives and timelines. One chapter is narrated by Noah, and then the next chapter is narrated by his sister a few years later. I really enjoyed that alternating perspective and alternating timeline. I felt like it gave depth to the book. So I was able to see the characters kind of change and mature, but then kind of see them flip back, which is something that is consistent with getting older, getting more mature. You often flip back into this person that you used to be because you kind of haven't gotten used to being this more mature person or whatever. So I felt like that was really good. Even when the perspectives and times change, I felt like the voices were consistent with the person who was supposed to be speaking them. That's something that I often look for when I read books that have multiple points of view. Sometimes authors are not able to get this authentic voice for each one of the different perspectives, but I felt like Jandy Nelson did that very well in this book. So there are a few things that I would have changed. I felt like there were parts of the book that were a little too oversexed. At 13 and 15 or 16 years old, I didn't feel like some of the situations that the characters were dealing were appropriate for their age, and by extension would be appropriate for the people that would be reading this book, because I feel like when you have characters who are 13 and 14, that your readers are also going to be 13 and 14. And so there were things that were happening in this book that I wouldn't have endorsed for a reader of that age. There were a couple of decisions that I would have tweaked if I was editing this book, but love the artsy references, love the relationship between the sister and brother, And so overall, I gave this 4 stars. Happiness Like Water is a short story collection. The author is Chinelo Okparanta, and she's from Nigeria. And it tells you on the back that she grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not sure why that was relevant. She lived in Nigeria until the age of 10 when her family came to the United States. And that experience is reflected in the book. So the first few stories are set in Nigeria. We get to see these young female characters deal with things like poverty and education that doesn't lead to employment, and dealing with like the vestiges of traditional marriages and being pushed into marriages that are arranged for financial or social mobility, and dealing with things like infertility, dealing with the pressure to have children so that your husband doesn't disown you. Then we see characters who are dealing with homosexual tendencies, falling in love with people of the same gender. So there's this one story where this woman, she falls in love with someone who leaves to go to the United States, and so she herself tries to get a visa to come to the United States, and eventually she does. And so in that story, we get to see that experience of going through the embassy, going through that immigration process. And then in the next story, we see an immigrant, a Nigerian immigrant who's now living in the United States. So the stories themselves are not linked, but there are elements of one story that carry over into the next story. So there is some element of continuity within the stories. The thing that was a little confusing for me in the beginning was I thought that the stories themselves were linked. So I was kind of caught up with the names. If you know Nigerians, you know that their names they all mean something. And so the names themselves are a little difficult to kind of keep track of. And so in the beginning, I was focused on keeping track of the names and feeling a little confused. But as soon as I resolved the issue with the names and just kind of started focusing on the elements and the themes in the story, I really enjoyed this story collection. I felt like the writing was beautiful, the prose was fluid. I felt like some of the stories were a little too short, and I didn't love the way that they all resolved. Like, there was just so much unhappiness in this book. So the title is Happiness Like Water, but the characters are all dealing with really unhappy issues. So the author explains it in a quote that I bookmarked. It's on page 144, and it's happening in one of the stories entitled Grace, where the character says, happiness is like water. We're always trying to grab onto it, but it's always slipping between our fingers. She looks down at her hands, and my fingers are thin, she says, with lots of gaps in between. So happiness is this thing that they are trying to reach, and you know, what are some of the sacrifices that they have to make to try to make themselves or their family members or other people in their lives happy? What are they prepared to give up as they try to find this happiness? The stories themselves are very moving. I feel like there are things from these stories that will stay with me for a while, not the characters themselves, because after a while, like I said, some of the names made them feel like the characters themselves were nameless to me. But I guess that is the point. Like, it's not about these characters, it's really about the issues that the author is presenting. I got this recommendation from Samantha Leanne from Leanne's Lit. She read this book in February when we were doing the Black History Month readings, and she raved about it, so it led me to request this book. I feel like this is a book that I will go back and reread at some point and maybe give it a higher rating, because it is a really great debut and it deals with such relevant issues. So I don't know, maybe because I was reading it for the readathon, I was a little hard on it, and maybe I should go back and reread it. I did put a few bookmarks in there. If you've seen this book, I recommend that you check it out. So those are 3 of my most recent reads. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these, and we'll chat down there. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll talk later. Until then, happy reading. Bye.